Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday. Thank you for being here with me. Let's see here. So today is Father's Day. So for everyone who's out there who is a father or a child of a father, it's pretty much everybody. For all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. And for all the children of fathers, don't forget to honor your father today and do something special. My son, Shay, is now 32. I was 45. I already had assumed by that point in my life that I would not be a father. I would never have a child. But then, you know how things go. It's one bigger joys of my life. Today we're talking about sound. Here I am, the universal sound meister, and also the sort of, I'm a public figure, and my public figure-ness is got to do with sound and stress reduction and healing with sound, and the concept that stress is the ultimate cause of disease. And in my opinion, an underlying disease causing factor of the 21st century is the 21st century itself. That the unimaginably abnormal man-made environment that we have made for ourselves and spread over a giant portion of the planet has included so many different varieties of abnormal input into life, each one of which causes another level of stress, puts our civilization and each one of us in it, and all organic life on Earth, as a matter of fact, not just us, puts us all at risk by loading us all up with levels of stress that our bodies were never designed for. So the current massive level of disease and sickness in the civilization that we have created is sort of way beyond what has ever been present in the past with people. It's a little bit difficult to thread that needle and differentiate what was, the even 150 years ago in the 1800s. The world was quiet. There was no electricity. There was no telephone poles. There was no music on radios. There was no traffic noise. Or the decibel levels of the environment, of the natural environment, is what we had. Now, you went into a city and you would have the noise of horses and people and, wagons on the dirt, or in a paved city, it would be on cobblestone, very loud. But from a biological standpoint, which is the way I tend to try to look at things, the body that we have was designed first within an environment that it has been genetically adapting to for millions of years. Humanity has been around for a long, long, long time, and we have evolved in our nature related to the planet on which we are in and the natural environment in which we have to live and hunt and seek food and seek shelter and make a place for ourselves. And so that natural environment, let's say, pick a number, 30,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, what was the environment like? It was completely, totally, and utterly natural. The whole environment was natural. 100,000 years ago, we lived in caves. We didn't build structures. But once we began to build structures, like the American Indians had tents, and those tents could be picked up and moved because they followed the herds. And but that's about as tech as it went, is fires and teepees, tents. Eventually we made buildings. But we rode horses, and that was pretty much it. Once we started creating wagons that we started pulling, it became more noisy. But the level that's going on now in the 21st century is sort of beyond belief. And that's just one thing. Electromagnetic fields and, the wiring in your walls is putting out a field of 60 hertz alternating current that extends 6 feet out into the room, that is affecting your biology, is putting a stress into your system. You walk outdoors, you've got, radio channels, hundreds and hundreds of radio channels, FM, AM, shortwave 1 and 2, military frequencies we're not even aware of, smart meters, 5G, Wi-Fi. All of these are putting radio frequencies, or certain frequencies, in the air that your body is trying to time itself to, because the body times itself to the world it's in order to save energy. But that's a natural world that this was evolved to time to. An unnatural world, we're still using the same mechanisms that we were designed for 30,000 years ago in a modern field that doesn't work anymore. I time myself to the 60 cycles coming out of the wall, and that's a partner that does not dance back. I'm not saving energy. I'm using twice the energy I was before. I just got fooled and tricked into wasting energy. Where the mechanism I evolved to dance with partners in the natural environment is to save me energy. So I'm being fooled into draining my energy at every step I take. As soon as I walk outdoor, I'm trying to time to all these radio frequencies and military frequencies. And our food isn't food anymore. It's chemical concoctions with flavor enhancers. Natural food coming right out of the ground that we grew ourselves is a whole different matter. And how we used to do that was before pesticides. So we knew a lot about companion planting, that you plant this plant next to that plant because this plant is toxic to the bugs that eat that plant, so it drives them away. There was a whole science of how you grow things that we lost for convenience. And we got sold down the river by big chemical companies who wanted us to buy their product to spray on the plants in the ground and poison the soil and poison the plants and poison you and me. So out of all of that mix of all the unimaginable layers of impossibly over-the-top stresses in the 21st century that we're being exposed to that's making us sick, sound is number two. Chemical, number one. Sound is number two on the list of the highest levels of stress that cause disease, sickness, and illness in not just people, but everything. So today we're talking about noise. When we have harmonious noise, we have things that heal, and we have what spins from that is music. But chaotic noise and noise that's too loud, in the world of sound, dosage is everything, including, dosage is everything in everything. So if you've got herbs, dosage is everything. If you've got homeopathy, dosage is everything. In sound, the dosage is how loud and how long. How long am I exposed to a certain sound, and how loud is that sound? Even if it is a beneficial sound to me, it can become toxic if the volume level is too loud, which would cause a stress response that nullifies its healing effect, or a sound that is the correct loudness, but I listened to it for too long and now it becomes a stress because the dosage is too big. So that's pretty much the dual basis of sound and healing that most practitioners, one of my little secrets in my bag as a physician, a holistic physician for all those years, 40 years I was in practice. One of the many things that made me special that other people would sort of come in desperation because I was a witch doctor at the end of the trail was dosage, something as simple as that. Some of these people were going to very well-known practitioners. I know these people. They're good. But they didn't understand the concept of dosage, something very simple. And in a certain pie wedge of the population, their systems are so blown out or so highly supersensitive in a world where that level of sensitivity is just blown out of the saddle because of the intensity of stresses that the 21st century presents to us. Somebody would come in and they would require, instead of a 30-minute session, a 2-minute session at a volume level that I could barely feel through the sound chair. And all of my rational mind would say, this can't be doing anything. My deep mind knew whatever your body tells me is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to make independent decisions here. This person had this much of a crack in the door to work with. And so that volume level and that length of time is all they've got left. Anything that's more than that is going to cause a new stress, and their whole system is going to freak out because it has no stress handling system left to deal with anything. It's got this much. And so if your therapy comes in inside that bracket at a time level that's like 2 minutes and a volume level that's so low you can hardly feel it, you are not causing a stress, at least. And the little bit of therapeutic input that you can begin with is you do what you can do with what you've got in front of you. And what I would see in those cases is this 2-minute window would become a 4-minute window a week later, and an 8-minute window a week later, and a 16-minute a week later, and the volume level could come up as their symptoms went away and their autonomic nervous system began to rebalance itself and heal its stress handling system and get it back online and muscle it up so it can handle normal things the way it's supposed to instead of being sort of blown away. This sort of unnoticed major stress factor in our civilized world, the noise factor. Noise pollution is sort of an unrecognized thing in general. There are organizations that have arisen who understand this, but most of us never hear about what they're up to or that they even exist. For the main part, sound is sort of out of everybody's mind, particularly in the medical profession. The volume level of our lives is of extreme importance. Noise pollution is more than a nuisance, it's a health risk. And so I would say that this volume level here is probably a little higher in 21st century, depending on where you are. But here we are. This is the kind of thing we're exposed to. Okay, won't expose you to that anymore, but that's our world. It even goes under the sea. I mean, we continually read these stories about, whales beaching themselves and dolphins beaching themselves, trying to get out of the water because it's so toxic. The noise levels are so toxic. And a lot of that is coming from the military doing experiments with long-range communication and extremely low frequencies, but all the boats and the propellers and, we're polluting the ocean and our waterways, and we're stressing out animals and plants under the water the same way they are above the water. Noise has a cascade effect on entire ecosystems. It disrupts the functioning of not only animals, but plants as well. A biologist from Colorado State University explains insects become more aggressive under the influence of noise. For example, beetles start to attack each other. Bumblebees pollinate plants less frequently. As a result, these plants give lower yields. It's a mess. It's a big mess. The average noise levels in your life that you're not aware of, that you've accommodated to since you were a child. This right here at 30 decibel levels is the natural world. A whisper, soft music, rustling of leaves, wind in the trees. This is the environment right here that we were designed for, right here. 30,000 years ago, this was our life. 100,000 years ago, this was our life. For hundreds of thousands of years, this is what we grew up with and evolved in our DNA to handle. Like right now in my house, there's 40 hertz. 40 decibels. Like my computer sitting right next to me is making a sound. And if I have my fan going because it's becoming a hot day, then I've got a fan noise thing happening. My refrigerator is making noise. Those are the kind of things that raise this up to a little bit of abnormal. Now, those kind of factors by themselves wouldn't be enough to cause big stress responses. But when we start playing music or watching television or having music playing in the background, or you've got your cell phone to some news station that's talking, and you go to your office, you're in a traffic jam, there's traffic noise like I just played. You're on the highway, there's the road noise on your tires. Your car is loud. Unless you've got a really expensive car, that is more soundproof, like you're driving in a Rolls Royce, then you don't hear that noise, right? But you're driving in any other kind of a little car that, costs $35,000, then you're driving a tin can and you hear everything. The road noise is loud enough that you have to raise your voice to talk to the person in the passenger seat. But this is all sort of normal business we don't even think about. And this is what you do every day on your traffic jam trip to the office. And at the office, right, now we're up into the yellow zone, office noise inside a car. At the office, somebody's cleaning with a vacuum cleaner that's got a radio going. I mean, there's big air conditioning units, industrial air conditioning units in this building that are making noise that you're not even aware of. There's people walking around having conversations. You get into a heavy traffic jam. You go into a restaurant, right? Most restaurants that we go into, you have to raise your voice to hear a person across the table from you. Restaurants are unbelievably noisy, and some are like really bad. Bar restaurants tend to be extremely loud. Higher end restaurants have carpets on the floor and stuff on the ceilings to absorb the noise, so there's a nice sort of quieter atmosphere, but that's not for most people. Most people, restaurants are the worst place to go. But I mean, subways, loud conversations, boom boxes, ATVs, motorcycles, school dance. You go to a concert, then it's way up in here, right? Here, crowd, rock concert, 120, 129 decibels. Sounds above 85 decibels are harmful. Sounds above this level right here. You go to a rock concert, you just got ear damage. You go to a whole bunch of rock concerts, you've got damage. You put headphones on, you listen to the same music through headphones with the volume up, you've got the same situation here. You're damaging your ears. 130 decibels is a threshold of pain. This is pain and damage. This hurts your ears. You have a gunshot go off without those headphone things on, noise blockers, then you just damage your ear. You hurt your ear. And now you've got ringing in your ear from that. And this causes hearing loss, right? Here's some common things in your life: washing machine, traffic noise, leaf blower, sporting event, rock concert, siren. I mean, we're exposed to these things all the time to a point where we don't even think about it. We don't notice it. Our hearing has sort of accommodated to that. There was an episode on television, Twilight Zone episode, incident at Oxbridge. Look it up. Do a YouTube search. Incident at Oxbridge. the old Twilight Zones from Rod Serling. They're going to hang this guy on a bridge, Ox Bridge, back in the cowboy days in the 1800s. And he's standing on the edge of the bridge, he's got a rope around his neck. There's a river down below. And they have some kind of a conversation, and then they, kick him over the edge. And before he hits the level where the rope is going to snap his neck, he disappears. And he shows up in a spacey kind of egg-shaped container thing in an apartment in New York City, and a scientist is jumping up and down and going, "It worked, it worked." He snatched this guy from the 1800s and deposited him into this was the 20th century in New York City in a high-rise apartment. And without boring you with all the details of the story, the man eventually goes mad and commits suicide because of the level of noise in New York City, which completely blows his mind. He's not prepared for the continual and constant level of noise and sirens and traffic and air conditioning unit and refrigerator and all the other stuff that's bombarding him. Loud noises over long periods of time damage the hairs in the cochlea of the inner ear. This little part right here. You are damaging the hairs that are in this fluid in the inner ear that's supposed to be waving these back and forth like kelp in the ocean. And if you've destroyed them with sound waves, they're not waving back and forth, and they are not exciting the nerve, this particular nerve, which carries a highly specific frequency. So now you're becoming deaf to certain types of frequencies. The high-end frequencies are the ones that go first. This causes a phenomenon called tinnitus, which is a direct result of a number of different factors. As a matter of fact, tinnitus is a very difficult thing to deal with. One of the most difficult symptoms that I dealt with in practice was tinnitus, because it has so many possible causes, and all of them have the same external symptom. And usually, as the way things go in reality, it's rare to have a symptom that only has one cause. There's always multiple causes that are contributing to this system, to the symptom that finally pops out the end. And so it becomes a real Sherlock Holmes case to disentangle all the different factors that are causing this one apparent symptom up here. And tinnitus is the same. So you can have wax buildup in the outer ear that would cause ringing in your ears. Infection, fluid, disease of the ear bones in the middle ear. The three little bones here, they have three little joints, and the joints have little muscles, and the muscles will automatically contract to dampen the noise if it's too loud. So if the noises out here are too loud, these muscles tighten up in order to dampen the vibration against the outer eardrum, amplifying through this triple lever system into the inner eardrum, called the round window, the oval window, where it goes into fluid and amplifies it 5 times more. So we're trying to protect this inner ear and those hair cells by damping it. But if you get some kind of a middle ear infection that damages these joints, then you lose the dampening mechanism. And more of the loudness of the outer world is transmitted directly and amplified 5 times through the fluids, which cause the damage that we're talking about to the hair cells. One of the factors in tinnitus, one of the factors in tinnitus is hearing loss. So as those little hairs get destroyed, and I march down the road of hearing loss, then my brain inside begins to turn up the volume knob because the overall volume appears to be getting less and less and less. So as I turn up the volume knob, I get this hissing sound, which is the sound of my brain amplifier in the background that I normally don't hear. But if the hairs are getting more and more destroyed and my hearing level is going down, I'll turn up the volume level so I can make it loud enough to hear again. And that's one of the big causes of tinnitus. And that's one of the biggest things that happens to all of us in this 21st century world. The level of noise is destroying our hearing. So we're setting ourselves up for, and I predicted this 10 years ago, we're setting ourselves up for generations of our children who, when they reach their 40s or 50s, everybody will have hearing loss and everybody will have tinnitus. Now, I came up with solutions myself with this bedside sleep unit that I marketed through the Brookstone Corporation. This was their best-selling product of their entire company. They spent $500,000 making an infomercial on this thing, and it was the only infomercial the company ever did, ever. Sleep is big business, and tinnitus is big business as well. So within this sleep unit, we had a tinnitus solution for helping you go to sleep. But that solution was sort of the standard masking, So if you get this ringing in your ears, when you're up and around in the world, then the things that you're hearing and the conversations and the stuff is happening sort of pushes the ringing in the background so you don't sort of notice it because other things are there to distract your attention in the sound world. But when you go to bed and there's no sounds from the external world now, the only sound you're hearing is this loud ringing in your ears that makes it difficult to sleep. So various companies have produced bedside tinnitus units that play white noise, or you turn on a fan in your bedroom and that noise sort of drowns out the tinnitus ringing noise because you've got something else to listen to. There are 6 different types of tinnitus sound that people hear, from low swishing to high metallic ringing, whistling sounds. And the frequency of the sound that you hear, if you could identify that. So this was my approach for creating the world's most sophisticated tinnitus masking technology, so at least you could get to sleep. Nothing that would cure tinnitus, but something that could mask the tinnitus sound so it would disappear so you could get to sleep. And that's pretty much what I built into this sleep unit. 6 different choices of soundtracks that you could listen to. So, for instance, one of those would be, you're going to push button number 1, and there's going to be this musical track. And in that musical track, I'm going to have a predominance of this frequency range. And then the second choice is another soundtrack with another frequency range. And the third soundtrack is another frequency range. And each of those frequency ranges that's dominant in that soundtrack is the frequency of the tinnitus that you may have, that we don't know which one it is, but it's most likely one of those 6. So you're going to listen to each one of them until the tinnitus disappears. When I play this one, tinnitus goes away because I'm effectively masking that specific frequency range with the sound, with the music. For any of you out there who, who have tinnitus, so I would predict that probably 80% of the people listening to this group have some form of tinnitus. That if you have difficulties with tinnitus, in the forums, in the Discord forums afterwards, I will post my folder of tinnitus solutions from around the world that I have collected over time. And it's sort of a exploration. You're not going to be quite sure which one is going to work for you. Some work really well with certain types of tinnitus and not with others, so it's sort of a crapshoot in a way. But I will do that at the end of this broadcast. I'll go on to our MindLink forum and I'll post it there. But we need what we've lost by losing our indigenous selves, our connection with nature, our symbiosis. This is all part of that. When we lose that and we create an artificial world, that artificial world harms us. Which brings us to my my cosmic revelation that I had at one point, which was the principle of Gedifadib, which is, God did it first and did it better. Right? So, the natural, pristine world that we were designed to be in, and that all of our internal mechanisms are geared to deal with, was the pristine world that we grew up in ages ago, that our DNA is still geared towards. 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. That Earth environment stayed so much the same throughout all that period of time. It's only changed in the last 150 years or 200 years. We have increased in an exponential way the noise levels of our environment until now it's completely insane, and it's causing deep effects in our health, in our psychology, and in all the living things on the planet of Earth, including under the water. What we need desperately is a return, to this realm. This is what we need. We need to go back to this zone, this place. The pristine world that we grew up in, where the decibel levels are low. Sound waves are food for the ear. The ear requires these kind of sounds, which are varied in all kinds of different ways that sort of excite the entire basilar membrane of the inner ear. All those little hairs from 20 to 20,000 hertz, they all need to be excited, and the natural environment supplies that in a measured dosage that causes nerves to fire throughout the entire length of the basilar membrane and the cochlea, and creates sort of food magnetically for portions of the brain that process this information. This is the world that now we have to schedule times and get in a car and drive for an hour or two to get to some place where we can experience this again. And, go to some, national park or a state park in order to find it. It's crazy. So trees are the unsung heroes. Trees are excellent at reducing noise pollution. Well-positioned trees and shrubs can reduce noise in urban areas by 50%. And not only does it reduce the sound level by half, it provides shade and cuts the temperatures in a city by half. So, well, not by half, by, I think it was, I should have put that one on here. I think it's 20%. If it's 80 degrees outside, then it's 68, 69 in the shade. So if you've got tree-lined streets throughout the entire city, then the whole city cools down and makes things viable. But Americans in particular don't seem to have the artistic sense to even figure that out. You see nothing but gross buildings and cement and sidewalks and streets and traffic lights for as far as you can see, and every once in a while there will be a tree here or there. In the expensive neighborhoods, they've got tree-lined streets, and it's very beautiful, and they got bushes and foliage. Needs to be a standard practice to build nature back in hand with, you know, the cities and the towns and the suburban areas that we make. There's actually a place, a thing, the Quiet Coalition. It's an organization. News, commentary, advice on signs of noise and health. A quieter world will be a better and healthier world for all. I mean, it's a testament that there is such a thing. I didn't know about this thing until I did this broadcast. That's why I love these broadcasts. It's like once you go down this road, you start doing a little research, there's a whole world there. There's a whole world of people who are paying attention to the fact that sound is killing us and causing health problems. And banging on the door to change legislation and to enact laws, to build more trees in city areas and suburban areas, and pass ordinances of noise levels and on like that. It's good that there's such a thing that exists. Do a search. Do a search for the Quiet Coalition and maybe join them. In India, check this out. Indian court rules that nature has legal status on a par with humans, and that humans are required to protect it. The judge invoked the power of the government to act as a guardian for those who cannot care for themselves. That I would like to see worldwide. A recognition that other creatures and that other living things on the planet have rights just like we do. That would be a game changer. The symphony of nature, unlocking the hidden benefits of the natural world and nature's sounds. You know, it's like, wow. Very cool. So there's a whole industry that I myself am part of that search out natural sound environments and make recordings of them. I make my recordings in 3D with high-tech 3D microphone. I have a variety. The ones that I use are go around your ear and in your ear, and you wear them on your own head. I have more expensive ones that are sort of latex ears on a stand, where there's two ears on a thing that can go on a tripod, so I don't personally have to be there. I can set the whole thing up and walk away. If I'm wearing them, I have to go into a sound meditation, which is a very valuable thing, and formed a new sort of avenue of meditation for me that I'd never thought about before. Um, this idea that you could have a sound meditation. That, in other words, you after this broadcast, I don't know where you live. Let's say for me, where I live in a suburban area in San Diego. Um, sorry, I live in a suburban area in San Diego. It's a very nice neighborhood. I have a ravine back behind my house, which is filled with nature and nature sounds, and I get crickets and stuff at night. This is a new experience for me because my whole life up to this point has always been living sort of in a more country area. When I was a kid growing up, we were in base housing and suburban zones like this. But when I was on my own, I lived in various places that always had nature. When I was in practice in Virginia, I bought a house in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so I had to drive up the mountain, and I had this beautiful house, and I had deer in my backyard, and I had trails that could go off into the woods. And but right now, where I am now, I could go out and sit on the bench in my yard. I have a very nice yard place, and I could close my eyes and use what I hear as a way to center me, a sound meditation. So when I would take my 3D microphones, show you here. Take this bag or a backpack, and in this bag I have a high-end professional digital recorder that can record up to a resolution of 92,000 samples per second at 24-bit resolution, which is way beyond the standard of CD, which is, 41,000 samples per second at 16-bit resolution. This is 96 at 24, which is super high resolution, professional level sound recording. It's got little microphones up here for stereo, but I would bypass those and I would use this special attachment for my 3D microphones that I would be wearing. And I could take this little thing and hike out, take a trip to Hawaii and drive out to Waimea Canyon, which is like the Grand Canyon of Hawaii, all overgrown, and hike out there for a day into the middle of nowhere and find a beautiful little stream, waterfall or something, and sit down and just listen and make a recording. And that became an incredible, once I would listen to those recordings, it just blows your mind, because the 3D tricks your brain into thinking you're hearing it for real, because your brain is geared towards all of my experiences are in 3D. So I've just recorded a 3D nature recording, and I can hear the stream down by my feet. I can hear the birds flying around in various positions. I can hear crickets in the grass I didn't know were there. It really knocks your socks off when you hear it. But once you hear that, the next time you go and do that, you're educated. Your brain is now educated. Now you're listening in a way that you never listened before. Your hearing acuity has just jumped. Your awareness that your whole world is in 3D just jumped through the roof. How the brain processes 3D, really requires headphones. So when a sound is off this way, it hits this ear first, and then it creates a sort of a sonic shadow. And this ear doesn't hear it until a split second later, because it has to bounce off the world in order to get to this ear. So this one hears it first, this hears a split second later. So my brain already knows the sound is that way, coming from that way. Then when the sound hits my head and my body, sound waves, it bounces back off with the shape of my body. So the sound waves are going to hit my shoulder first and bounce back. It's going to hit the tip of my ear, then it's going to hit my head. So the tip of my ear is already flying out before my head. So I've really got the whole shape of my body bouncing out into the world. And then it bounces off the world and comes back with the shape of my body superimposed on the shape of the world. And it does early and middle and late reflections, reverberations. And my brain is calculating all of this and mapping out the 3D nature of my world. Similar to how a bat is, making supersonic sounds that are bouncing back off, and it's seeing the world structured from these sound reverberations. Our brain is doing the same thing, except we're relying so heavily on our eyes. And the 21st century have made us more visual than ever because there's so much visual input that we're losing our abilities with some of the other senses. They're sort of retreating. So, so first is the direction, second is early, middle, late reflections of sound, and third is the shape of your ear. These folds in your ear are not by accident. It's called the pinnae. And depending on what angle the sound is coming into your ear, those folds will shave off highly specific frequencies, and your brain will calculate which frequencies are missing so it can calculate the last 5 degrees of the location of where the sound is coming from, because it's a survival mechanism, right? I'm creeping through the jungle and I hear breathing on a branch, 55 degrees this way and 10 degrees azimuth up that way. I know exactly where the panther is. So I know I'm supposed to jump exactly in the opposite direction for that in order to give myself the best possibility of survival. 3D processing is high up on the ladder of survival mechanisms. That's why we've got 2 eyes and 2 ears and 2 nostrils and 2 hemispheres. And the body is divided right, left, because that's what's required to process 3D. It's the reason why I haven't spent so much attention on 3D as being part of what really grabs your subconscious mind and opens the doorways to deeper levels of who I am, and why the sound table and sound chair that I've created are divided right-left stereo separation, like the way the body is designed, to match the headphones right-left body, headphones for the body, in particular to process 3D, so it's all moving through my body and my perception in sync, and because I'm using binaural beats to entrain your brain waves, which requires 2 tones to be slightly out of tune that force synchronicity of the brainstem areas for vibration sense and my hearing processing centers in my brain. So my work is sort of way more sophisticated than what anybody else out there is doing. So this has special significance to me. And there's a whole profession of people that are out there, professionals, who make these recordings. Now this guy here has got 3D microphones. This covering here prevents wind from making noise against the microphone. But the fact that it's long like this means that there's an ear over here and an ear over there. I have a similar setup myself. But you can see his whole thing is a backpack. Simple. This guy's got a 3D head. This is this particular one is a hard plastic head with rubberized ears, latex rubber ears. The fact that how the brain processes 3D requires the ears to be separated by the density of a head to create, the sonic shadow idea. So when the sound is over here, it hits his ear first and creates a sonic shadow on this side, which is only possible if the ears are separated by a density of a human head. So they make this guy's got a plastic head with rubberized ears to get the sonic shadow, and he's got it covered so that the wind doesn't blow into the microphone. This is a very expensive setup, this artificial head. I don't like the head too much because there's something called albedo. Albedo is the reflective pattern, a reflection of sound off of different materials causes a different type of sound. So for instance, a plastic head will bounce the sounds off of it completely differently than skin and bone and blood, because some of the sound is actually absorbed into my tissues. My tissues will bend, that sound wave will hit and bend in my tissues. Some will bounce off, and the scatter bounce of those sound waves carries not only the shape of my head, but its relative softness, which a thing like this will not do. So there'll be a hard artificial edge to the sound reflections coming off this plastic head, which I don't like that idea. I'd much prefer to have the ones that I wear on my own head, and now the reflective patterns are actually 100% real. They're a real match to reality. So when you listen to that recording, all those little tiny details around the corners make a difference at a subconscious level, which is the part that we're trying to access and to wake up through pattern recognition. So for instance, when we make these realistic 3D recordings of nature, and we listen to those recordings with headphones, and the brain is just completely fooled that it really thinks it's in nature. The deeper question is, how much is it fooled? And from my standpoint, I want it to be fooled as completely as humanly possible. As a scientist and a sort of, I'm a bit anal about this, the more perfect it can be, the deeper effect on the deep levels of the unconscious mind. My rational mind is sort of responds to the gross tuning, but the unconscious mind is anal and picks up every little teeny tiny detail because it's in charge of my survival. So it's analyzing all little teeny tiny details. And so the difference between a hard plastic head and actual human head with the microphones would be that level more of believability at an unconscious level, and would open more doorways that wouldn't have opened if it was a plastic head where the subconscious goes, well, this is like a 95%er, but it's not 100%, so I'm going to hold a little bit back of my letting go here because it could be the murderer in disguise. Those are the kind of things that when you're dealing with healing at the deepest levels, that you have to pay attention to. And most people don't go there. Most people don't even realize that that's a thing that you should pay attention to. Another little trick in my bag, that by being mercilessly anal about making sure that I can do it to its nth possible degree of perfection, to give myself the best chance of penetrating into the deepest parts of the system where the answers are, the real answers to why I'm not healthy, or the real answers to why am I here and what am I here to do? What's my purpose in life? Because I'm using these same sound techniques and technologies as a high-tech meditation tool in a new science of consciousness expansion, where once again, we're going to pull out all the stops and be super anal about making sure everything is perfect to open the deepest doors that we can get to of the grandest awakening that we can engineer as scientists in the science of consciousness expansion. These things all become important. And you wouldn't believe how difficult it is to get a pure nature recording with no man-made sounds. Very hard. Even when I fly to Hawaii and I hike for a few hours out into those canyons and hilltops to get to some pristine place. And I start making a recording, and I want that recording to be 30 minutes of uninterrupted, beautiful nature sounds. I can't get it because 12 minutes through, there will be some jet in the sky making a noise that these are picking up. I have no control over that. You look up there, you see this little dot with a chemtrail, and it's making a noise. You really have to hike further and further and further out to get away from other tourists who are hiking the same trail, because these are well-known trails. These are trails on a map in Hawaii that anybody can go to. So it's a big deal to try to get a full 30-minute recording of pure nature sounds with no man-made sounds. It blew my mind when I first realized that where I thought I was out in the middle of nowhere, you're never in the middle of nowhere. Maybe in Antarctica or something, but there's always some intrusive human noise factor that comes to bear. So getting back to this place is a tall order. And really the metaphor of this is getting back to this place inside myself. I have to find this place in me where I reconnect to all living organisms and the planet itself with a new level of understanding and grokking from the deep inside of myself. I have to find that place. It's why, like the t-shirt that says, waking up sucks, because when you truly wake up to what is, you realize how screwed up it all is and how sick people are and why they're sick. And when you realize that you have an answer for that, then you can no longer be silent. You now realize that that following the path of waking up in the big sense is fraught with spiritual responsibility, that you cannot walk past someone in pain and suffering if you have an answer, that you can't just sit back and hope that somebody else is going to do it. Because waking up puts that responsibility on you, because it's people who wake up and see the truth of what's going on who are the only ones who would be in a position to even think that that's something that should be done. You can't sit around and wait for somebody else to do that, because that's you. That's the responsibility, that you open that door. If not me, who? And if not now, when? It's the disease of sloughing it off on somebody else to do, or doing it tomorrow. That's what I mean when I say it sucks to wake up, because that responsibility is a heavy one. But I'll tell you that when you step forward and you put on that mantle of responsibility. And you step forward. You do it with a certain level of what in Japan in the samurai times was called Bushido. You find your state of Bushido, your Buddha nature Bushido. You're a Buddha warrior. You're stepping forward on purpose in the world to change the world. Sounds like madness, but it begins with a thought, and it begins with a person who says, if not me, who, and if not when, now. You are that person. You've been elected by nature. And all of us are on the path of waking up. And the whole world is populated with people on all kinds of walks of life, on all kinds of places where they are on that path, from noobs who are just starting out and don't know anything, to advanced spiritual awakened entities who have that mantle and are pursuing that mantle. And I'm here to tell you that once you do that, once you put that mantle on, you start stepping forward and taking charge, then your life becomes a life of magic. You start to attract into your life the most top level people that you would ever want to meet. Other people like you, other people of a certain level of awakening begin to populate your life. They show up. They knock on your door. They call you on the phone. It becomes a thing, a synchronicity thing, where you begin to be drawn into your spiritual tribe in a way that's the most amazing, mystical, mind-blowing, joyful thing that you could ever experience. And you can't experience it. You can't get there. You can't have that unless you take on the mantle, unless you accept the responsibility of a conscious being who is on the path of waking up in the biggest possible way you can think of, which wakes up everybody around you and creates a new world. So what we're doing here is what this live streams are all about, to make a change, to step forward, to accept the mantle, to not take the experiences and the information passively, but to apply it in your life and recognize that you are one of those people who have been elected. You volunteered for it. You can't blame it on anybody else but yourself. But don't make a mistake. There is work to be done. And you wouldn't be here listening to this if you weren't one of those people. So, 30,000 years ago, our natural environment was a certain way that we have been born out of in our DNA. We're still running this program, but we're not connected anymore. We're lost in a cement jungle. We're looking for our way back. The whole world is looking for its way back. Back into the ancient past, the roots inside of our DNA, who we used to be as a people in relation to nature. In the sound world, this was our sound world. Our level of interaction with nature was in a whole different level. But at the basis of it all, it was people. Same people that we have now. The same drives, the same love of family, the same wish for ourselves and our children, except with a deeper, mind-boggling connection to our world that we don't have anymore, that we've lost. Our ancient ancestors. who we are in our deepest self, even today. That person is still inside of us, nose pressed against the window. And out of that came the great masters and the healers and the shamans that held the secrets and passed it down generation after generation. The old and ancient ones, the wise ones, chose apprentices to pass the information through so it stayed intact. How you wend your way through this incredible world that we're part of. How we treat it, how we nurture it, how we nurture the nature, the metaphor of this inside of our own soul and our own lives, how we extend it out into our whole planet and beyond, sort of into the whole cosmos, the cosmic nature of sound. The sort of the Om, beyond planet, beyond solar system, into the cosmic sound itself, sort of the cosmic Om sound, exploring this in a 21st century world to reapply it so that we can recreate the sounds that heal us and that bring us into a centered place in ourselves, using science and technology and ancient wisdom all rolled up into one, so we can pull out all the stops in the 21st century of everything we know that could assist us on this sort of journey to the deep inside, where we see all the secrets exhibited in the world around us and the cosmos itself, right there, sparking a place inside of ourselves in our consciousness, where we arrive here with a bunch of like-minded people who understand the principles of there's power in numbers, there's power in science, there's power in sound, there's power in entrainment, to entrain all of us to the same exact place so that we can get a sense and a picture of what is it do we want this world to be. Flesh that out, come to terms with what that is. And here we go on this journey today. Take a big breath, and here we go. Oh. Thank you all for being here. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Take the time today to go out in your backyard and just sit there for a while, see what it sounds like. Use it as a sound meditation. Until next week, be healthy, take care of yourselves, and I will see you then. I'm going to leave this chat open for a while longer as usual, and then I'll transfer over to the Discord channel. Thank you all very much. dinner somewhere would be great, but maybe not be possible.
That would just be movie. Let's see if I can get some reservations.
Yeah, if you get a reservation, yeah. It might not, that's what I think, it might not be possible. That's great.